Welcome, everybody, to today's WITI Connect and Collaborate. Very excited to have YL here to continue what we did a couple weeks ago. And YL, I don't want to talk anymore because I know you need a lot of time to pack in all that info.
Thank you, David. Awesome. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we kind of chatted about a lot of things. You know, where search is at, where things are going, what AI's implications are on the search engine optimization kind of market, what business owners should do, and how to think about websites in the first place. So we covered quite a bit, and today I kind of wanted to focus on just one thing, which is the website from a wireframe all the way to a finished product. And I don't want to focus too much on platforms or specifics of should I vibe code it or not. Um, I think the most helpful thing would be to just go through a process with you guys about how I would approach building out a site. And maybe we could use a local business as a kind of case study to show you what the planning looks like and kind of what the steps look like in implementing a variety of tools into a strategy. So I'll share my screen and we'll jump in. And if anybody has any questions, please do not hesitate. Just jump in. I'll be more than happy to answer. So this is a tool called Relume, and it's a great little tool. You guys could probably do a free trial and get a lot of value from it. Now, in the case that you don't want to use it, there's another free option called Octopus. The domain's octopus.do. And I think this is where a really great website starts. It's in visualizing a sitemap, trying to think about the amount of pages. What pages should we have? What purpose do those pages serve? And what pages don't even really belong in the website in the first place? I think depending on the size of the company, a lot of people have a certain idea of what a website is. Some people think it's a brochure, a digital brochure. Some people think it's a knowledge hub. Um, and depending on your niche, there's going to be some distribution of what that concept kind of looks like. But let's just say we wanted to build a website for a local plumber, right? And we'll do it in Houston, right, where I'm at. So I would use this tool and I would just type in a pretty basic prompt. I want to design a website for a local plumbing company out of Houston. They also offer, they offer the following services: plumbing, drainage, emergency services, and repiping. And we get a pretty good idea from this tool, which is, using AI to kind of spell out what these pages are going to look like and kind of the hierarchy of the site itself. So this isn't a bad first step, right? We've got our homepage here. We go down to plumbing news, contact page, request a quote page, projects, residential commercial. That's great. This is also fine. FAQ page, testimonials page, and a service page, which has each individual service as an individual page, which is really great. And then an about us page. Now, this is a really good first step because from here, you've at least eliminated a lot of those questions of like, what pages should I build? And then from this point, you can ask yourself, well, which of these do I not want? So me personally, I would probably get rid of industry news because again, we're not a distributor for the plumbing industry. We're plumbers, so we serve customers. So I wouldn't want that. I would want, plumbing tips and then possibly, something like a blog. So this is a good first step. And here we've also got some utility pages, the 404 and the cookie section. But I want to show you guys where you can supersize this kind of approach. And that's going to happen in Relume. So in here, we can take our same prompt and we can jump back in, start a new project. And we can dump that same prompt in here, but we can actually set the amount of pages that we want to build. Now, what this will do is it's going to make assumptions about what pages are missing, which again gets that off of your desk. You don't have to think about that again. And let's just say we want to build 20 plus pages. So we'll generate our sitemap. And as this thing is working, we'll kind of see some similarity between it and Octopus, but we'll see some big differences as well. It's actually going to build out particulars about each page. And then when we scroll out, so now it's done. We're seeing a much bigger picture of what this website, includes. So let's look at some of these. About us page is fine. Services, plumbing, drainage, emergency services, repiping. Great. Moving over, service areas. Now this, for a local plumber, is super important because this actually can become a pillar page. So what's a pillar page? A pillar page is similar to this services page. It's a main page that has 4 other subordinate pages underneath it. These would be called cluster pages. So moving up, we would actually want to build out a lot more service area pages because maybe we do work in Houston, the Woodlands, Conroe, Katy, several areas that are all within our service range. So, we can add that later. Reviews. Okay, this is great, but I don't know if that should be an entirely isolated page, but we've got a gallery, we've got a blog, and then a blog post. Okay, this is perfect. We've got our pricing. Now, 99% of plumbers do not really publish pricing. I'm sure you guys have had this experience before, so we'll get rid of a pricing page. Promotions, not bad, but you can honestly put promotions on a banner on any of these pages, primarily the home page. So we'll get rid of that page as well. FAQs are great. Got a contact page, got a careers page in case they're hiring, and a job listings page. That's nice. Request a quote and COVID-19 response page. It kind of seems like the world's moved on. We could probably get rid of that one too. So, from here, we could probably say like, all right, well, what's missing here? Well, you'd probably want to think about what services are missing, what service areas are missing. And I apologize about the noise. Let me mute for just 1 second. All right, perfect. So let's just assume we're happy with this because it's a really good start. So, with this tool, we can move on. So we'll move on to a wireframe. And this is kind of where a little bit more of the creative stuff starts to happen. Because regardless if you're using Wix, Squarespace, Webflow, WordPress, you're going to have the same set of challenges regardless of the platform or the tools that it provides you to accomplish these things. But I like Relume because it gives you a really strong lattice to visualize these things before you dedicate time, resources, money into actually building the site out. And you can change your mind quite a bit for free. So let's click over to Wireframe. And the tool is going to start building out what those sections actually look like. So let's move over to the home page and we'll zoom in, kind of see what it's up to. Okay. So here we've got our heroes section, top of the home page. And it's already kind of giving us this canned copy. Now, this isn't great copy. It's not terrible, but there are definitely improvements that we could make. What would one of those improvements be? I would probably say um, just this H1 right here. I would want to include the keyword a little bit differently. So do I want to go in here and do that for every single page? Sorry, it's having fun loading. This is probably where you would want to have Claude next to you or any LLM that you like to help you think about what keywords you would want to include throughout the copy of the page. But let's go down and take a look at what else it filled in. Core plumbing services, comprehensive plumbing services. Okay, we've got the 4 main ones that we wanted. We've got some unique selling propositions. Nice area for testimonials. The business at a glance. This is great. So as you can probably tell, all these pictures are missing. And this tool is really good because it's actually going to be able to pull from stock libraries, which pass on the license for you to use those for your business website, which is helpful. So let's just say I don't really like, you know, I don't like this section right here. So what I can do is I can actually go into Relume and look at hundreds of different layouts for this one section, this benefits section. So I can click here and I can see it in a variety of ways. And really, just from a style perspective, pick what you think looks best, right? Now, there are some considerations here. If we are to pick layouts that have more assets like media, photos, videos, things like that, what do we deprive ourselves of? An area for keywords to appear, an area where we could add a little bit more value, add a little bit more clarity about our products, our benefits, right? So it's kind of a, you know, individual preference, but I like to go for like a 60-40 rule, 60% text, 40% to assets and creative things. So let's say, you know, that kind of looks a little similar to the one right above it. Let's go to, we'll pick a different one. Yeah, we'll go for this one, right? We got a nice image in here. Now, this is the agonizing part. This part takes the longest because you're going to want to look at every page of this site and ask yourself, do I want to have to fill this out? Do I want this to look different? What am I sacrificing by choosing this or not choosing something else? And, you know, it really depends on what your trade-offs are. Now, do we have a newsletter? No, not us. So we'd get rid of this newsletter section probably altogether. And we'll go through the rest of the pages and do the exact same process. So now let's just say we're past this part. We're done, right? We've got everything. And don't get me wrong, it's done a pretty good job. But I think that before you move this into a production pipeline to make it into a website, you should handle all of the lifting for copy right here in this tool because it's a lot easier to do it here than doing it in Figma or doing it in Webflow or doing it in any other platform. So again, we're trying to approach this as a business owner, not as technical people with expertise, deep expertise in this stuff. We'll just apply a style guide. And that style guide is going to get us, you know, typefaces, colors, some basic, you know, stock imagery, which is not great. All this probably have to get swapped out, but you know, it's trying its best. So let's just assume we're happy with this, you know, combination of looks and typefaces. Well, we'll just move it straight into the design mode. And here we can look at somewhat of a finished product. Give it a second while it loads. me X out a few things. All right, it's taking its sweet time, but we can move on to another section. We did include a blog, right? Now, if you're a business owner, you're not really acting as a publisher or a blogger or a writer. You're scant on time. You don't have the time. But what you want to accomplish is to be able to, one, provide helpful content to readers, to people that live in your city. So, for example, there could be very particular things about the soil in Houston that make plumbing issues severe or not severe. It's a subject for something to write about. But how do we get to a good amount of topics to cover without having to put on a thinker's hat or a writer's hat? How can we get a basic map to understand what's our blog going to be about? And how do we utilize tools to make that process a little bit easier to accomplish? Well, this is where we get to a topical map generator. And a topical map, in a simple sense, is it's creating what's known as domain expertise in the eyes of Google. If you are a plumber, you should know a lot about a lot of things. CPVC versus copper versus PEX versus any other galvanized plumbing, any other pipe material. You should know about fittings. You should know about recalls on certain products like toilets or shower heads, faucets, fixtures, cartridges, things like that. Well, you should also know a little bit about the differences between a compression fitting and brazing a joint or different things like that. You should know about possibly water heaters. You should know about, water softeners. Also, you should probably know something about water filters for houses. These are all adjacent, but they are inside of the plumbing niche because these are services that we could possibly, as a plumbing company, provide to clients. So let's just click into this topical map generator, and Houston-based plumber who offers the following services: plumbing, drainage, emergency services, and repiping. And we'll generate a map. And this is a free tool. This is offered by Fat Joe. There's probably 20 or 30 more of these tools that you guys can find on Google. So here it's suggesting some pillar topics: common plumbing issues homeowners face, importance of regular plumbing maintenance, DIY plumbing tips and tricks, water conservation, eco-friendly plumbing solutions. I mean, these are all related to plumbing services. Drainage, right? And what we can do is we can actually take each of these individual topics, and we can fan them out into other questions or topics to write about, which again is serving what purpose? Google's main goal is to align the results that it provides with the intent of the person doing the search. Now, for example, if my plumbing company offered 24-hour plumbing services, emergency services, right? You get a pipe bust in the middle of the night, but I don't have that added to my website as a page, how does Google know that we also offer that service? They never will. If we also don't have blog posts about, well, what should you do after you have a water pipe burst in your walls? What's proper remediation procedures look like? Again, that serves the blog, but what does that also communicate? Because if we have blog posts about this subject and we have a service page about this service, and we have a company that offers that service, that is semantically all relevant. And we're aligning what we have on our site with the intent of the query, intent of the search. So we can take each of these and we could do a really good job of coming up with different subjects. So what I would do is I would take these and I would say, okay, this is a great little map. Could have just did that. And we can actually go into Perplexity. You can use any LLM, by the way. I just happen to prefer this one because it's a little bit nicer to look at. And I can just give it a very basic prompt. I want you to provide me with 10 blog ideas for each of these pillar pages. And we'll dump it in there. So now we actually have the titles of our blogs, which is also very helpful. So let's go back to Relume, and we'll take a look at what it's got so far. Okay, great. Not bad. So what if I want to start filling all this stuff in? How do I know what to write? How do I know what combination of words I should have here? Should I leave it alone? Should I just trust the AI to do a really good job? Because I wasn't exactly satisfied with it. So I want to do a little bit of keyword research. I want to find out, are there things that I'm missing? So I can go to a tool like Semrush. And by the way, there are other tools that are available that are either free or on lifetime deals. You pay for it once and you own it forever. And then there are other tools that, you can pay minimally like 30 to 50 bucks a month and use the full suite of tools. I do pay for Semrush, but I'm just using it for illustration purpose here. So plumbing, Houston. So I know this looks really confusing, but I'll kind of break it down of what we're looking at here. We're looking at individual keywords. Now, this one's branded because Abacus is actually a plumbing company here in town. So we can ignore these that have a brand name on them. But we've got Plumber Houston, Plumbing Houston, Texas, Houston Plumbing, Houston, Texas Plumbing, so on and so forth. Just really reconfigured, versions of that. We got Plumbing Supply, right? So what we'll do is we'll actually go in here and we'll start building out a list of the ones we want to focus on. So how do we know which ones to focus on? Well, we have to scroll and look at a couple of things. And these are all very relevant. This is the intent of the query, right? Is it informational? I'm just looking for info on this one thing related to plumbing. Is it commercial? I'm looking to contact a plumber because I need some service. Is it navigational or transactional? There's 4 different intents that these tools assign the keywords into. Here's our volume. Our volume is how many searches every month are happening for this specific keyword. And you can tell quite a bit. 1900, 1900, 1300, 1000, 1000. I mean, there's quite a bit here. Across all of these, we're looking at 47,000 queries a month. And we're going to look at this last thing called the KD, the keyword difficulty. So keyword difficulty is, it's kind of this ratio of like how much work you're going to really have to do to rank for this. And that work includes a couple of things. Well-structured content, a website that performs well, and backlinks. So backlinks are, again, depending on who you ask, either the most important thing in the world or not important at all. I take kind of a middle of the route approach where I think they are certainly very important, but I think that the quality of the links is certainly more important than the quantity. So what is a backlink? In the simplest sense, it's when one website links to your website, and depending on the type of backlink There's only two. It's either going to pass site authority to your domain from that domain, or it doesn't pass any authority. And maybe you're wondering, how many of each should I have, right? Should I put a bunch in here that are this kind and that kind? Is there a ratio, a magic number? I think that it needs to look natural. So there's two types. There's a do follow backlink and a no follow backlink. And a do follow link passes the authority, which helps you. And a no follow link doesn't pass the authority. And that doesn't hurt you. It just doesn't help. So I think that there has to be a natural distribution. If you did nothing but build do follow backlinks, Google's machine learning algorithm is pretty smart. It's going to know what you're doing, which could result in a manual penalty for, trying a link building strategy to manipulate the algorithm. They don't like that stuff. So this keyword difficulty is kind of a mixture of like those three things, right? Do we have good coverage of the keyword? Do we have a well-built site that adds the pages necessary to kind of align with the goal of ranking for this keyword? And do we have backlinks that pass authority? So 42 is not easy. It's not hard, but you have some work ahead of you. But as we go down, we can start seeing like, okay, Houston plumbing, 56, that's hard. 37, not too bad. But look, we've got some easy ones in here. 29, 28. So these are plumbing supply houses, so that wouldn't even matter because they're branded and it's a supply house, so it has nothing to do with, you being a plumber. So what you can say is, you're kind of looking at like 35, 37 as your typical keyword. So I would take like, let's just say the plumber Houston. And I want to take a look at a couple of things because my homepage is focused on this keyword. So I look down here and I see variations of the keyword, but I also see some questions in here. So let's look at some of those how-to plumbing manuals in Houston, how many Walmarts closed for Houston plumbing problems. All right, none of these are relevant, right? But what do we have on our homepage? I believe we have a FAQ. So we need to find some questions to ask that we can also answer. So let's just take Plumber Houston and we'll take it to another tool. And this tool is really good because you guys can use it for free. It's called Answer the Public. Yes, we are human.
When you say free, I think Answer the Public only has a few searches per day, though, isn't that right?
Correct, yeah. But you can still get quite a bit of the heavy lifting done on that free plan. And then,
Yeah. So as long as you can get it on your first ask, so don't kind of learn about it as you're going. Get your question formulated before you ask, so that you don't waste your daily allowance.
exactly. So in here, they changed the UI. This is nice. So we have different search engines that we can look at. We can look at Bing, we can look at TikTok, we can look at YouTube. They're all search engines at the end of the day, but let's focus on Google. And this is what I want to find. This right here, let's see if I can zoom out a little bit. Here's our main keyword. And then here's like some big questions. How much do plumbers charge per hour in Houston? And then how much should I pay a plumber per hour? What should a plumber cost per hour? We could probably just take one of these questions, the main one, and we could put that in our FAQ. Do plumbers make $100 an hour? We don't want to include this because, again, we're not a vocational school. we're a plumber that provides services to people. So we're kind of looking at, roughly the same set of questions here. These aren't very helpful. So let's imagine these from a customer's perspective. What would I want to know if I'm on a plumber's homepage? Well, look, it's got some recommendations here. How fast can you respond? Not bad. What areas do you serve? Are your technicians licensed? Do you offer warranties? What are your rates? This is great. But unfortunately, the answer stinks because no plumber publishes their prices. They require the service trip and the on-site survey to find out exactly what the scope is. So we'd want to change this answer. So let's assume that like we're happy with kind of what we got, right? So maybe, we're going to have to change all these out, but we can do that in another tool. But what are we looking at in terms of what is appealing about this site? Well, a couple of elements, right? We've got this really, really nice navigation, and I would make these drop downs as well. I would make this a drop down as well. And I would make this a drop down, which it already is. Now, we've got call to actions everywhere on the page. Contact here, contact here. Now, maybe what I would do is I'd probably put an image in the background and put a form right here so I can quickly capture business. But going down, we have all of these areas where these are going to be internal links that point to other pages on the site. Internal linking is extremely important because it's not just about navigability. It's about thinking of a website from Google's perspective, which is crawlability and rendering. So those two things, I think a lot of people get wrong. They think, oh, it's just a brochure. I need to put great photos on here. Look, and we've got call now, schedule, details, more info. Great. But increasing this navigation path and not only increasing it, but creating a mesh of internal links from the blog posts to a service page, from a service page to a home page, from a blog post to an adjacent blog post about the same subject, back to a service page. And you can kind of see where this complexity will grow. But approaching it in a step-by-step, easy to understand way is where AI comes in. Because I can take this sitemap and I can say, build me an internal linking strategy based on these pages that I've built. And it will go ahead and kind of spell out what that strategy looks like. It's not going to get it all right. You're still going to have to check the work. But it's at least giving you quite a bit for free. So we go down. We've got social proof right here. This is great. Probably put like a Google review widget. And then same thing with the footer. The footer has really all the pages. But I think right here, I would probably move this over and I would put service areas. And then I would put Houston, I would put Katy, the Woodlands. And each of those pages is allowing me what? It's allowing me to approach location-specific keywords because we're local. But Houston is not all of Houston. There's all these other areas that are satellites around Houston. Some of them are even in the county. Well, we want to capture that business too. Because someone in Tomball is just going to say, plumber near me, Tomball. If I don't have a page for that, I don't capture any of it. So what's missing right here? Well, what's missing is we don't have a newsletter, so we can get rid of that, right? What I would put right here is the name, address, and phone number. It's called NAP. And these are very important because even if you just operate out of a small warehouse and no one actually goes to your building, no one would, right? And even if you have a service area, using the name, address, and phone number, using the address is very important because on maps, what's happening when someone queries? It's going off of their IP. So their IP address is going to help assign where the recommendations for the local businesses are going to happen from. And if you've got your address in here and you're within proximity, you'll probably show up on maps. So, what do we do after this, right? Like, let's say we've gone in here, we've built out all these pages, and we're happy. We swapped out our photos. How do we get this into a website building platform? How do we move it out of here? So we can just export, and we have a variety of options. We could export this as a Figma file, meaning that I didn't want to swap out every photo. I didn't want to go in there and add all these notes, but I want to add a couple of things. I want to change some icons. I want to change whatever. This is where you would submit it, export it to Figma, and then hire a Figma designer to go in and make the specific edits that you want. And then from Figma, you could go to WordPress or Webflow, and you could actually start developing the site, because now you've got everything you need. You can directly export straight to Webflow from here, which is really helpful. I can skip the Figma, part if I'm very happy. You can also export this as React. Now, I would not recommend exporting as React, and I would not recommend like vibe coding this. And there's a reason for that. So JavaScript, as far as I understand it, when it comes to Google's crawlers, they assign every web page a budget for how much it's going to crawl. Now, if we've got a lot of React, JavaScript, and other things that are going to slow down the rendering, Google is just going to stop at like 30% of the page. You're beyond the crawl budget. They're not even looking at the rest of your content. So what does this mean for us? Well, what this means is we add small animations. We add small little aesthetic decisions, things that enhance the beauty of the site. But we don't want this thing moving around and have parallax effects and all this stuff. That's not helping us. So starting with simplicity helps a lot. So if we built this into Webflow, some of this is going to go into the CMS, some of this is going to be static pages. And I want you guys to think about, like, what are some other tools that are going to help a search engine understand what all these pages are about. So let's click over to Webflow, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like on a site. We'll go to the Nimbus site. So here we've got our site, and we want to go to all these pages. So let's say, we just moved this plumbing website right into Webflow. Now we want to start adding these other things. So what do those look like? Well, one, we have a title tag. And in our title tag, we also want to focus on our keywords. And, this needs to be about 55 characters, no longer. Meta descriptions don't really matter anymore. Like, this used to matter. Now it's just kind of a novelty thing. You just kind of still have them and do them. And this one, you can exceed, you can make these as long as you want, and there's no penalty. So no benefit, no restriction. We want to set an open graph image. This is the image that loads whenever we're sharing our URLs on social media platforms. This is where a little bit of the magic is happening. We want to add structured data. So JSON is a way of including schema markup that combines several schema types that allow search engines to better understand what a web page is about. So what's really fascinating about what Webflow has done is they actually give you the ability to generate these with the click of a button. And I've done so much manual schema generation. It's always been the worst part of doing a site. And I've compared what I used to do with tools versus what this thing does by itself. And the differences are just through the roof. I mean, it really is probably one of the best features they've ever added. So on every page, we would go in and we would fill out title tags, meta descriptions, open graph image. We would also, in case we have any sort of, widgets that we want to plug in. It's a good place to do these. Or you can also do them over the whole site on the site settings. And we want to do that for every page. Now, with our CMS collections, kind of the same thing, but there's dynamic data that you can use, which applies to all of the collections in the CMS. So building a site out, why do we need all these pages? Right? Because we want to be able to capture every opportunity we can. Most SaaS companies, and I see this often, they'll do a landing page and they think it looks beautiful. We've got beautiful mock-ups. We've got the product right here. We've got, a really persuasive funnel. And we're going to do great. But if you stick with a single page site, you will be playing the pay-per-click game forever. You'll have to run ads forever. You're just not going to get the visibility because the right site architecture creates topical depth and also talks about the product in a variety of ways. There's different aspects to a SaaS product. Every one of them may seem thin in your mind, but in the mind of a search engine, it needs to know about those things. Otherwise, if your product solves a very specific problem, but you don't have a page about that problem, you don't have a page about the feature that solves that problem, are you making the best use of your time? No, you'll still be running ads or relying on some other marketing channel. So building depth is what Google wants to see. So hopefully, this process hasn't been super confusing. If anyone has questions, man, please, don't hesitate to jump in. Jared, go ahead.
Hey, I'm curious, who is this for in terms, and what I mean by that question is, um, it seems like it was for everybody until you said you export it to a Figma or some other format, and then I thought, oh, okay, well maybe that's not for me to do because like. Then I kind of got lost. Is this
Sure.
for someone who wants to build a website and then they have to maintain the subscription, the $40 a month, to then go and update it? Or is this just like an initial design tool? Who would this be for?
Sure. So this would be primarily for a small business, a local business. Now, you brought up a great point because right at the Figma point is kind of where it all came undone. So you can find Figma designers that you can hire for 500, $1,000, and they'll be able to finish this process once you export it to Figma. Now, if you don't want to do that because you're happy with what you have, meaning you spent a lot of time in Relume editing everything, getting exactly what you want, skip the Figma step, just go straight into Webflow. And now you've got your site. So I think, what people seem to get hung up on is they get lost in details when the point is find the right process and ship it. And you can, don't get me wrong, like conversion rate optimization, A/B testing, all that stuff is important, but it should come later, like a lot later.
And could you jump on a subscription, design a website, have it all beautifully designed, and have your templates that you can take with you, and then cancel your subscription so you've only paid for 1 month, and then take that to whoever's going to be doing your web stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a reason why these tools, are made. They are made for agencies that design tons and tons of websites. And this part of the process, sitemap to wireframe, is agonizing because you're playing this back and forth game with the client. And sometimes it just gets messy. So imagine being able to conceptualize something very quickly and then presenting that and being able to get a yes or a no on the concept from the client. That's helpful. But it's also very helpful for a business owner because you don't have to become, a designer, developer. You don't have to learn any of these design tools. You can at least get off the floor quickly and you can refine it later. So I would say it solves 80%. That last 20 is always going to kick your butt, but you know, that's like most things in life.
That's cool. Thank you so much for doing this again.
So let's see here. So what else anyone else have any questions? All right, perfect. So let's see, like what else would we want to add to this? From the perspective of not just SEO, but helping people trust us because let's just say, we've got some Google reviews, we want to show those here, but you ever been on a website and you see like these testimonials, but you're like, man, these are all stock images and I don't really believe any of this. I think we've all had that experience, right? So how do we accomplish this quickly without having to scrape all of our Google reviews, grab all those profile pictures, and then populate that data? Well, we can use another great little tool that's very cheap. Elfsight makes an incredible collection of widgets that you can just plug and play. So go to the catalog. Here we've got Google reviews. So you can take this, it connects to your Google business profile, and it imports all of your reviews. And what's also beneficial is it allows people to leave a review straight from your website that goes right to your Google business. So you're not having to tell someone, hey, go on Google, look us up, then leave a review. So this tool is very helpful because, again, this produces its own schema type, its own structured data, which helps Google understand, oh, wow, they are heavily reviewed. They've got great reviews. There's great, average. We've also got other things in here, calendars, things like that, countdown timers if you're doing promotions and stuff. But, the point is like we're a business owner. We don't have time for complicated development work. Let's say we're non-technical and we don't want to learn. So should you go and hire an agency and spend $10,000, $15,000 on a site? I just don't think it's that necessary because the important things can be done for cheap. So, by the way, with these widgets, definitely add like lazy loading because they kill the site speed, but it's manageable. Well, what else is a good consideration? Well, this is probably giving us like possibly 2 or 3 different font files. And Google fonts slow websites down all the time. Try to have some discipline when it comes to fonts. 2 fonts maximum. They could be 2 different fonts or the same font in a different weight. And again, when you're done with your site, very, very, very important is to go to Page Speed Insights, which is a free tool from Google, and to put your domain in here and see where you're at. Like, we're not going to have a great score because we have a lot of design elements on our sites which slow it down. But I'll show you guys a little trick for how you could fix a lot of these issues that this tool will reveal. So give it a second while okay, so not the worst, not the best. Desktop, slightly better, right? Now it's going to give us these recommendations. So we'll stick with mobile because I think mobile is very important, especially now. Most people typically, are on their phones most of the time. And it's going to give us some insights about like, where are these things that are slowing down our site? What are these things also? And we can go in here and we can actually look at like, different files that are either really too big or images that are humongous in size, but the container that those images are displayed in is way smaller. So all of those little things that, I mean, it's hard to know these things until you run one of these analysis, right? So you can go in here, and this is what I like to do. I just like to grab a screenshot of the issue, and I just feed it into Gemini. And it'll quickly start going through these things to give you some insights about what you could change, what you could get rid of. Now, the things that really kill sites are videos, really giant files that you're embedding in, in the site. I almost recommend never using videos. So, okay, so it's kind of given me, again, the problem, the solution. Okay, great. How can you fix? So I want to give a little bit more context. The site is built in Webflow. So maybe, who knows, lazy loading, or maybe putting our assets hosted on another platform would speed this up a lot, right? But then the same thing. Image delivery. Oh, wow. These are definitely big savings here. 730. So all of these need to be fixed. So I'll probably do this over the weekend. So I just added these recently, actually. So I'll have to go in and I'll have to fix all of these. But these tools kind of give you the total picture of the depth of the site, the structure of the site, the coverage of the topic, the keyword, and then also the technical things that you need to be aware of when you're designing a site.
Hey, Weil.
Sure.
I think Michael Santori has a question for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how important is page speed these days?
It's not super important. And again, this is like based off of like an older browser too, from what I was reading. So it's not super important. However, going back to the issue of crawlability and rendering is when this becomes important. Because say like you vibe coded the site, or you got one of those sites that's like on awards.com, awwwards.com. Those are the most immersive, gorgeous sites. But I've never seen a single one of them rank on Google. Ever. Heavy on JavaScript, heavy animations. So from Google's perspective, they have a budget set for every web page. And if the crawler is not able to render the whole page, it's not going to take any of the content that you've added and actually allow you to rank for it. So I try to think about it as like trade-offs. Page speed insights, like if you're a great web developer, you don't really think about this too much because you've already got the best practices as habits. But if you're, again, small business owner, non-technical, you don't know, you could come back and get like a page speed a performance score of like 20. And you're like, what the heck? It could be small stuff like just delete a couple of the font files. You're not even using those font files on the site. But, you work with a designer or Relume suggests that you need 4 of them. Mistakes, are always going to happen in this process. But search engines, they don't want to render that stuff. It's expensive. So from Google's perspective, Google's running a business. So crawlability and the ability to render kind of like set the tone for how I approach design. Because you could design like beautiful stuff, but if it doesn't move the needle or generate revenue, then why did you do that in the first place? So good constraint, and this is what I hate sometimes because good design sometimes collides with SEO needs, and you're like, oh crap, like how do I make this work? which is why we're completely redoing our site with a strong focus on crawlability. So, great question, by the way.
Thank you. Great answer.
If anybody else has a question, feel free. I think another thing I can chat about is accessibility. A lot of people miss on accessibility, and most people end up with like a 0 as a score. So, what are the things that really matter? Well, some people are visually impaired, so they access the internet with a completely different set of tools than we do. They use a screen reader, and that screen reader is having to interpret a web page and the assets on a web page to help that person understand what's going on. So every image has what's called alt image text. So we can look at an image right here, and we can look at, well, I think I'd prefer to look at it through this asset library. It's a little bit easier to see. So let's bump out. And this alt image text, it needs to describe the image, the asset. So you can also use AI inside of Webflow to generate all your alt image text. But it's one of those things a lot of people forget about. Now, what's the risk of not doing any of this? ADA lawsuits, right? They're common. They don't happen all the time, but they do happen. So, considering accessibility is very important to Google, so it should be important to SEOs, and it certainly should be important to business owners that have websites. Another thing with accessibility, if I have a white background, should I make my font like a light gray? No way. Because it's hard to read. It's hard to read even if you boost up the brightness on the screen. Common sense things that, again, most people, they wouldn't think of, or they're making design decisions that go against the grain of what are best practices according to Google. So you'll get punished for those as well. And again, the background and foreground colors do not have a sufficient contrast ratio. So this is an interesting one because, this is a thing I have on here from a platform that we're part of. I can't really manipulate this myself. Maybe I could, but again, I'm not a developer. So I go right back to Gemini and I just try to see what are my options. And if not, I just have to sit with the fact that I'm at 87%. But that's fine. Getting 100 on all this stuff is not that important, but on SEO, it's certainly important to be as high up as you can. Jared, go ahead.
So trying to get my camera working. So I was just doing a search, and there's a lot of articles about me and other sites and things. Would it help? And is it suspicious if I were to put an unpublished page that's published but not linked anywhere with links to all the articles? So if there's like 200 articles and other websites featuring things about me or press or whatnot, would that help my search results, or is that a sneaky thing that Google looks for?
That's a great question. So let me ask you this. On those websites that you're featured in, do they point back to your website's domain?
No.
And you have
No,
a
it's just
website.
I do, but it's horrible. It's really bad.
Well, you do have the domain, right?
Yeah.
You can always build a new website.
Yeah.
So you should treat that domain as an asset.
Mhm.
Because, depending on how long you've had it, right?
I've had it since 2003.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Mhm.
So I would try and reach out to all of those, different publications or websites that you're featured on, and just shoot over an email to the editorial team and say, hey, look, you guys published this article that I'm featured in. I just wanted to see if you guys could possibly include a backlink to my website. Most of the time, no problem. They'll do it for sure. Sometimes they are pointing to your site and you're not even aware of it. So I think like a backlink audit would definitely give you an answer. Now, what would be your next step, right? Let's say like you reached out to all these different websites and they said, yeah, no problem, Jared, we'll throw you a backlink, no worries. Well, what do you want to do after that? Well, you want to get every one of those URLs for every one of those articles, and you want to go to a tool like Index Me Now. And this tool forces, not, I hate to say forces, but basically like it tells Google, hey, there's a new web page that's been edited, or there's a new web page that's been published. I want you to index it. So in here, when I'm building links, and I'll zoom in here so you guys can see, when I'm building links, I add them to this project. And right now we've indexed 72% of the total amount of links. Quite a number of them are not indexable, or just, they have a no index tag on there and you can't do anything about that. But you would add all those URLs one at a time in a list. And then you would save them, and then you would force the indexing. And what that does, that will definitely help your SEO, because you want Google to be aware that not only have these articles been updated, but they actually link back to your site. So depending on what publications you're featured in, dude, if they're like really, really authoritative sites, that could be a huge boost in visibility for your domain.
So what if I'm changing direction? Like it was primarily for entertainment related stuff. And if I'm shifting direction to like speaking, does that still help?
Were the articles about the entertainment side of what you were doing, or about the speaking side?
No, it was all like work related stuff. It was all like, this was his profiles. It was kind of like IMDb, but a bunch of different sites like that.
Features, yeah. I don't think it's going to hurt at all.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to hurt at all. And actually, that forks into another thing. And I don't know, are we good on time? Or I think we're out of time, right? Yeah, we're 4 minutes over.
Hey, you can keep going while I'm driving for a couple
Okay.
or so.
This
And
segues
we are
perfectly.
recording if anybody needs to split. Sorry, keep going.
Sure. Oh, Michael, go ahead.
Did you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was asking if if anybody wants to hire you, how do they get a hold of you?
You can reach out to me via phone. My phone number's, well, I probably won't put it here on the internet. You guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's just my first and last name. You can also visit us at www.nimbusmedia.io. Or you can reach out to me via email. That's team@nimbusmedia.io. And like initial audits, assessments, kind of learning where you're at, all that's free. I don't charge for the consultations. And then we have like very comfortable pricing packages for all the work, depending on what you want.
Thank you.
Of course. I think next week what we'll talk about, because this week was, oh, sorry, Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, apologies if this has been mentioned yet, but I am curious about the AI element of SEO. And so I'm wondering if you've done work there, the LLM.txt and the different things that go along with that, and if you have things to say about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a big controversial subject in the space. You got two schools. You've got people that are all in on AI, SEO, GEO, AIO, whatever the acronyms are. And then you got people that are the kind of the Luddites or purists, however you want to characterize them. And they're saying, no, nothing is really new. I don't buy it. I am agnostic because I'm opportunistic across the board. I'll hear anyone's opinion about how this stuff works, because I would just like to wait against testing experiments that I like to do. and to see for myself whether or not that's BS. Now, some thoughts on LLM.txt. None of the major AI labs have said that they honor any of that or that they recognize it. So I don't know if that's been put to bed in the industry. There's still probably some contention out there. But I have heard some very interesting thoughts from the CEOs of some of the biggest companies on this issue. The CEO of Cloudflare has had some incredible insight on where he thinks this stuff is going. Similarly, the CEO of Webflow, she's had some amazing things to say that I thought were very fascinating. She said that some of their biggest enterprise clients are now building two different versions of their website. One version that's literally just for the LLMs to scrape, and another version that's actually for the human reader. Now, that's interesting because you got to imagine technical requirements and then, resource obligations. Where do we spend time? It brings up a whole new thing. Now, the guy from Cloudflare had some really interesting things to say. The biggest insight was the sheer amount of hunger that these models have for fresh content is insatiable. And the small publisher, the blogger, the small website owner, whatever, does not have a seat at the table. All their content's getting stolen. It's all getting fed into the machine, and they're not getting anything from that. Their traffic's actually going down. Their clicks are going down. Their impressions are going up, but the impressions are from crawlers, not from people. So if you're a news company, this is the worst time to be in this, because I mean, how do these companies monetize what they do? It's ads. They display ads on their websites, and the thing that makes that profitable for them is they have a lot of traffic going to their sites.
Question for you. If a company were to do that, how would they structure it? Like a different subdomain? Where do they put one site versus the other?
I think what I've seen is that there's a link on the footer that says, "Hey AI, click here and read me." And that's where all of it is just structured data.
Wild. AI
Or
can figure that
Markdown.
out. Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, the other thing is I think a lot of people are doing this in anticipation of agentic browsers, which will be doing things without the user's awareness. They'll just be taking actions.
Yeah, particularly with the click, that's definitely agentic.
Yeah.
I don't call it agentic. It's just a smart whatever, but yeah.
And I'm not a huge fan of these things either.
YL. So I mean, if part of your site you tell Cloudflare you don't want it to be scraped, does that protect it?
That's a perfect question. That is actually the billion-dollar question, because there have been people that have been, through Cloudflare saying, no, you cannot scrape my stuff at all. Now, if you turn if you toggle that switch, guess what you've also done? You've denied Googlebot from scraping your site, which you need, because that crawler is what feeds the index on Google. So you either turn them all on or you turn them all off.
Well, but if you have, okay, so say that it's like the media company example that you talk about, if they had like a paid area that people have to be members to get into, as the example, then, so that's not even scrapable away, and maybe they don't want that. And then we could put just going to have a place that will attract out, in a whole. Like, is that a strategy that would make sense?
You cut out quite a bit.
Does that question even make sense?
No,
I did. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so yeah, so the question is, like, would you use that strategy as a funnel? So if you're like a site that has like a membership part of it that people have to pay to get in, would we just protect all that via Cloudflare. Everything else, and they create a whole area that can be open to scrapers and crawlers to push the information out to then build a funnel back in. Like, is that?
I would imagine that would have to be something that's like moved to a subdomain so you can control it at that level. I'm not too sure.
Got it.
But there are some very concerning things that I've heard about OpenAI's agentic browser Atlas actually showing up as Googlebot on people's logs, which is insane to think about. I mean, it's on Google Cloud. That's what they're using for all of it. Now, should it show up as Googlebot? I don't think so. I think that that's just polluted the data set for every marketer ever. And now we don't even know what's actually happening that's moving the needle or not moving the needle. And then the other thing to consider is none of these companies respect any of these old conventions like robots.txt. They ignore all of that. They're scraping no matter what. They don't care. So the question for site owners is like, what do I do? Do I go the route of saying, screw this, I don't want any of these people to steal my content, and inadvertently you're kind of killing yourself on Google because Google is grabbing this stuff to also feed Gemini. So what do? You're kind of you're in a catch-22 situation. So me personally, I let them scrape all of it, all of them. My Robot 60 is fully open. I know they don't honor it anyways, but yeah, I'll play that game. I don't care.
Wait,
Jared, go ahead.
Well, I didn't want to cut off David if he wasn't finished.
No, you're good. And then after Jared, I'll kind of make the announcements. But go for it, Jared.
So what if your business doesn't depend on traffic? So what if you do a radio appearance or a talk, and so your site is more like a pamphlet. It's like a, hey, here's my services, that type of thing. Are there any benefits to being closed off, or do you need the Google traffic?
The benefit of having Google traffic is that it doesn't depreciate as fast as like an advertising budget. Once you stop putting the money in the machine with advertising, that's it, no more. But with Google, it does seem to last quite a bit longer. So depending on what your goals are, if you are not monetizing yourself through your website or monetizing your services through your website, then yeah, you got a really strong case for it not mattering and not playing the game. But it really depends on where you choose to convert a click into a customer. Not every business needs to focus on this stuff, especially ones that are heavy on social media or heavy on ads. They don't pay attention to this stuff. Now there are some things that are concerning too with like Reddit, for example. So there's a guy, he's a subject matter expert. I forgot exactly what he was really good at. He was the best in the world at it. Been writing a blog for like over a decade. And what he did was he took the exact same post that he just made on his blog and he posted it on Reddit. Same title, same copy, everything. And he was trying this experiment to see, would Google prefer the authority of the subject matter expert versus the authority of Reddit and the search engine results page? It always showed Reddit above him. Now, that's interesting. So why does this happen? Well, Google and Reddit have a deal that a lot of people don't even know about. They pay them like $60 million a year. They say, we will show you guys in the search engine results page towards the top, second or third, whatever, and we get to scrape your user data. And that's seemingly the relationship that these two companies have. So what did the marketers do? What did the SEO guys do? What did the AI SEO guys do? They all said, it's time to start spamming Reddit. Because they, again, saw that citations were coming from Reddit constantly in ChatGPT output. So that's where they went. They just saw it as an opportunity to spam something else and then end up in the output in LLMs. But this is where it kind of gets weird, right? How do you show up in AI output? Is there a secret recipe? Is there a set of tasks that you can do? It's not really clear. And honestly, if I were to pop the hood on any one of these SEO companies that say we do AI SEO or GEO or whatever, and you looked at the actual itemized list of things they did, that's kind of indistinguishable from spam. So, again, controversial subject. I don't know. I've experimented with showing up in LM output, and I found it to be actually very easy because the models give you the lattice to follow. If I type in a query about something, specific subject like AI data center electricity usage, and it shows me 40 citations, click on the citations. Look at the sources of where it's pulling that data from. Now, the question is it really pulling from those sources? Is it really reading all those pages? Who knows? It's all a black box at the end of the day. We don't know what level of depth is actually being assigned to every individual citation. But you at least have a lattice that you can look at and say, well, it's always pulling from Medium. Maybe I should take my blog post and rewrite it a little bit. Put it on Medium as well. And from that Medium article, I link back to my website. So then when somebody runs the same query in ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the other ones, it's now going to cite from the source it prefers, which is Medium. And then inadvertently, you are actually getting the boost in visibility. And I've done this experiment and it's worked. We were able to produce citations for the website and the Medium article that we wrote on the same query. But the trickiest thing, is it worth doing all this stuff when the click-through rate is really, really low? And the conversion rate, by the way, is really, really low. And everyone's arguing about it. The conversion rate's higher, the conversion rate's lower. I personally think it's lower because I don't think that people, when they're using an LLM, are in a purchasing mindset. User behavior, it's like decades in the making. We've had decades of ingrained patterns of using Google a very certain way. Even the average person. There is no way OpenAI or any of these companies are going to find a way to disrupt that because it's such a strong psychological thing. It's going to take a long time for the patterns to change. And even if they do change, do people make their final purchasing decisions based on output that in the back of their mind they know may be hallucinated? I don't know. It's a tricky one, man.
Well, that's where we're gonna find out, YL, because we're gonna start a weekly session soon, right? And maybe next week we'll send it out. I'll get with you and just we'll figure out time of day and everything. Because I know, like, are the European people, make sure it's our time zone, the Asia people, their time zone. Because you have big fans already all across WITI and around the world.
Oh, that's amazing.
Appreciate it.
That's exciting. Yeah, and maybe we can try we can try some experiments, on one of these calls and see what happens the next week. See if we actually index or just show up in the output.
Totally. And then we could even have Michael's co-leader of our AI programming community. So then if we need to maybe build little things to like put, have articles together. So yeah, we'll do it.
Amazing.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Wow.
Thanks
You're
for
awesome.
joining, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Incredible
Bye.
presentation, Weil.
Bye,
I'll
everybody.
connect to you later. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Appreciate it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Weil.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
even if you could kill them, they